now it's your stage. Have fun. We are looking forward to your speech. We have slides, so you have 20 minutes.
All right. So a little bit more about me. I joined Hive in 2018, originally for DTube. And I initially was like, all right, what's this thing that has a rewarding blockchain, decentralized video? It's kind of interesting. So I started doing some more research and looking into how the underlying technology works. And then eventually I got pretty involved in what was Steam at the time, and now eventually Hive. And then in 2020, I got approached by Dan and Matt to start discussing what eventually became the Speak Network, and working on that for the last 2 years full time. And now VSC, which is the layer 2 smart contract system, off-chain layer 2 smart contract system for Hive. VSC, since it is layer 2, it's on IPFS. All transactions, well, most transactions are on IPFS, and they're anchored into the Hive blockchain. So they all get synced up into the Hive blockchain. Given that it is off-chain, you could also use your off-chain accounts, so like the DIDs that we are working on with Speak Network. And those could also be just directly from Ethereum. So you can use your MetaMask to sign in and post and interact with this smart contract layer. That ultimately hooks in with Hive. Oops. Now, we all know, from the conversations I've had with a lot of people here, we all kind of know the challenges of Hive. You go to an Ethereum developer today and you ask, and you say, hey, you should go integrate with Hive. And they look and they say, how am I going to do that? There's no smart contracts, there's nothing I can work with, there's all these different standards. And even worse, you go to a manager and you say, wait, why doesn't your team integrate Hive? And then they look and they say, I'm not going to integrate that. I'm not going to pour a bunch of money. Because right now, to actually use Hive with smart contracts is very limited. You don't really have any good solution or any good actual standard behind it. Whether that's for NFTs, smart contracts themselves, or any mix of different things that you want to do on chain, it's really kind of hard. All right, so let's see. So I'm going to go into kind of a general structure of how VSC works. And hopefully it all kind of makes sense. I won't go too much into the tech side because that can get quite in-depth. So I'm just going to stick to, come on, this thing real quick. All right. So VSC proper contains a validator-like system. So that's DPoS voted in validators using HBD as the main kind of governance unit. You lock the HBD into a multisig, which then gives you voting rights to actually vote in the top set of validators. That also will give you the ability to generate RC credits, which is not something that's going to happen now. It's just kind of a flat fee and no fee at all for the foreseeable future until that's implemented. But you'd lock in that HBD, which then allows you to then vote in those top validators. And these are kind of the top dogs of the network. They manage everything from the multisig to the final say of what actually happens on the system. They, in a sense, aren't too heavy nodes. They just go in, they process Hive blocks and VSC anchor records, and then do all the validation and sync it all to chain. However, the executors do actually the bulk of the work. So they will actually go out and execute the smart contracts. They will take in the smart contract JavaScript code, and they will take in the input data that is from the anchor chain, so all off-chain IPFS stuff. And then they'll compute the output. And so each pool is about 25 to 50 or so nodes, and they all have to sign off for the state to be updated of that contract. So this allows you to create multiple individual pools per each contract or set of contracts that then scale horizontally with load. So as you increase the overall amount of contracts and volume of transactions, then you would increase the amount of incentives for the individual node operators to go in and scale it out. So you won't have a situation where CryptoKitties goes in and it blows up and then all of the transaction costs just go through the roof. And then the actual smart contract VM. So it's all JavaScript based. So that means developers from the normal world can generally go in and work with the language. It's not some fancy EVM thing. It's just simple JavaScript. Now that being said, we could expand support eventually for EVM or WebAssembly, which would be more of a mature solution, which then we can offer other things like having EVM directly on BSC. Most on-chain operations can also work with can be done through a smart contract. So anything from like transfers to account ownership can be done through your contract, which I'll have a bit more on that later. And so aside from just modifying the state of the contract, so like if you have a token ledger, you can say, hey, this person now owns this new balance. You could also do on-chain operations through the multisig. All right. And so the biggest thing that I want to push forward here is one-time RC delegations. Right now with Hive, for you to onboard a new user, you have to do about 3 different transactions over the course of about 3 blocks, so about 9 seconds. You have to create the account, do an RC delegation, and then finally they can interact with the chain. And additionally, that RC delegation, you either have 2 things that are going to happen. You either under-delegate or over-delegate. You either under-delegate by giving them too little RCs, where they have plenty enough for them to use, but you're spending all of this RCs that's now locked up in an individual account, which means that those RCs is stuff that you can't actually use. And in fact, with ThreeSpeak, we have a lot of users that just have RCs in HP that don't use it. And almost 90% of our resources goes completely unspent. So instead, with a staked HBD that generates RC credits, you can generate a one-time code that allows you to then stick it into a transaction and authorize that transaction to debit RCs from a main master account. So in the case of a dApp, like ThreeSpeak, we'd have our account that would be staking in some HBD, which would then generate some RCs and then can be sent out on demand to individual users, which means you could sign up a user and actually post a transaction in less than a second. Typical Web2, you enter into a URL, run a simple request, and now you have an authorization token that you could use to sign and actually commit that transaction off-chain. And of course, that ultimately will interact with on-chain via the multisig and other means. All right, and then contract-controlled multisig, talked a little bit about that already, but that's essentially controlling a multisig account that has kind of delegated permissions for each contract. So VSC has its main master multisig account, and you can effectively program that account to do certain things that you'd want, according to what scope. So in most cases, that would just be transferring in tokens for like a DEX or some other system that requires on-chain balances. And in others, you might want to own entire accounts. So you could create an account completely off-chain from another user that's just controlled through a smart contract and then goes through the multisig on Hive. And so that means that you could have all sorts of systems like referrals that are just running on actual smart contracts instead of backends for the referral part of it. Additionally, this doesn't stop with multisigs. Eventually, multisigs should be replaced with a little bit of a better solution. So this is just kind of the medium halfway point between something that could actually natively interact with layer 1. Oh, and also, one second. And also, we've already been testing this live. So if you can see here, there's already a Hive account set up for our multisig testing that we've been doing, which has been sending in incoming transactions and outgoing, and of course doing the update cycles of maintaining ownership. All right. Okay, so another thing is, aside from all of the custom contracts that you can build, there's also a lot of standard contracts that are being worked on. So like, in this case, a ledger contract, which is just you own account balances, you can send it around, people own it. But also part of it is being off-chain. So you can have an off-chain address that actually owns funds separate from a Hive account. So like for specific purposes, I could have a multi-sig account between 2 people. Maybe let's just say Dan and Matt have their multi-sig account. That's a one-time use account. Well, one time for one specific purpose that they control, so they can put some Hive funds in, and they have those Hive funds that they could use for HiveFest. So say, all right, well, I'm going to put some funds in there. We both control it now, and then we can go send that for whatever purpose we need. So that even allows dApps to use that for like payments. So if you want to accept a specific, if you want to have like an invoice, this would be a special address that you would actually accept that payment for. So you'd go in and create that address, and then you could receive it and then send it. And of course, this interacts with off-chain accounts, so that means that you can actually have like an Ethereum user come in and own real Hive in a smart contract and interact with it through the smart contract. And if they do happen to get a Hive account, they could then redeem and withdraw that Hive balance into an actual real Hive account. Oh, and additionally, they have native HTLC support, which means that you can actually do cross-chain swaps with the ledger contract. So if you want to do a cross-chain swap with Bitcoin, you would put it into like a payment address that's then locked up on both the side of Bitcoin and on VSC, and then execute that smart contract when it gets redeemed on the Bitcoin side. So then you can do that swap directly between tokens on VSC and something that's on Bitcoin or another blockchain that supports the same standard. All right. Now, Bitcoin wrapping. I was initially going to do a public demo showing Bitcoin wrapping, but for a whole mix of reasons, both on scheduling and technical and everything else, that's not going to happen. But in the following few weeks, I'll definitely be doing a public demo on actually showing the proof of concepts behind Bitcoin wrapping, and hopefully something that kind of resembles as close as production as what you would want to have, but we'll see. So the important part with Bitcoin wrapping is it's a fully trustless, decentralized collateral bridge. So wrapping providers on Bitcoin have locked up collateral in VSC that act as their guard against any kind of fraud. So then when they take in Bitcoin payments, they could post the proof onto VSC, and then that proof allows them to effectively mint that wrap BTC to the user. So they would then go receive that wrap BTC, and then when that user wants to withdraw that wrap BTC, it then goes through the unwrapping process. And if that user, or if that wrapping provider fails to redeem those tokens, or fails to send them back, then their collateral gets slashed in accordance. So, and this is also based off of the Xclaim framework, which is a trusted wrapping framework that's already been used on Polkadot and I think Ethereum as well. And so it's a very similar concept to that in terms of how the chain relay works and actual collateralization. Smart contract VM is secure at the core. It's completely secure because you're using the actual proof of work algorithm from Bitcoin to prove and disprove operations from Bitcoin. And then, yeah, here's just a chain relay proof, which to most people doesn't really mean anything, but there's the output and input that just says where the data came from, or where the transaction came from, and then where it's actually going to. All right, and then here is a mint operation. Initially, when I was doing my testing, I set it up with its own ledger contract, so it could actually mint some wrapped Bitcoin when it receives the proof from the chain relay, and then I could send that around within the smart contract that is the ledger contract for wrapped Bitcoin. Let's see. So this is the end. Obviously, there's a lot more to build. So we have a proposal out on the QR code on the right, and then of course the website vsc.eco, PeakD, blog, Twitter. You can all find that. So for the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have a comment period on the initial proposal draft, and then shortly after that, I'll actually release the real live proposal. And of course, yeah, we have our team here. Myself, Platinum, Payesh, one of our new developers that we're working with on the front end. Of course, yeah, and we also need more help. So if you are a developer that is watching this or in the crowd somewhere, we have jobs available, vsc.eco/jobs. So.
Perfect. Great, cool stuff is coming from a surfer boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I think it's opened way more doors to other things. I like the multi-sig function for helping people not to spend everything, or for events like this. This is a cool thing. I was asking already a few times if we have something like this now. It will be there soon.
Soon, yeah.
Yeah. Please, if you are online and see all this here, go in contact with these folks, engage with them, have a chat. We are here to connect, not only to show what's going on, but you need to be connected wherever you are sitting with your skills. Feel free to join these folks. If you have any other question, go to my account, Detlef, and ask me something. I will try to answer or connect the right people together. Are there any questions for Vaultec? Not everyone together? No questions? Brian. Come on stage and grab the mic. It's way more easy. We are a family here anyway.
I'm going to ask the question about Lightning, obviously. So I think I'm going to have to work with you, and I want to work with you because I want to build the same functionality. And I think that will be possible without being able to prove what happens on Lightning, because you can't. It's sort of internal. But I'll be able to receive
that is taking Bitcoin from Lightning or some other source and instantly converting that to wrap Bitcoin. So the actual wrapping process does take some time. It takes around anywhere from 3 to 6 block confirmations plus a little bit more. So that does add a lot of time, right? And most people might be like, I don't know. But so you can go through something like Lightning and then directly hit something like value for value and then convert that to wrap Bitcoin on Hive and then send that around instantly within a very short period of time.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear and what I need.
And whenever this is working, we need some posts that everyone could understand it easily below developer level.
Yeah. So that's the other thing is I also need somebody to handle social media and all of that. But
Okay.
yeah, so they're in the proposal, the bottom section of it, there is a section on what roles we need. And then, of course, the application. So if you go to vsc.eco/jobs, it just redirects you to a standard kind of job application format. And yeah, just need front-end developer, back-end developer, and then somebody to handle media.
Okay, thanks again.